time either. I'm here with Devin O'Donnell. We're going to be watching Charlie Dusterberg on the left playing Black-White Flicker versus Alden Cates on the right playing the Grinding Breach deck. Talk to me about this matchup. Kind of one of the new faces, but featuring a lot of old favorites.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on who you talk to, which camp. This is one of those classic matchups where the Orzhov players think they're favored, the Breach players think they're favored. I think really the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. You want to talk about the hate bears, right? You normally see a Death and Taxes style deck. I don't want to use that exact phrase because there's no Death and Taxes here per se, but there is some hate bears, right? You have Aven Interrupter, Bogart Trawler can mess with the graveyard, Emperor Bones as well. You have Solitude that can hit Tamiyo and stuff like that, Witch Enchanters that can hit Urza Sagas, and that is kind of what this matchup is going to be about. As far as the decks themselves, we've seen Breach on camera a couple of times, and we saw Black-White Flicker in the hands of Theo previously. Really just kind of about putting a bunch of creatures into play, getting a bunch of value with Ephemerate. The powerful lines that include Felia, Flickering Overlord. This Black-White deck has a lot of play to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the classic look of these hate bear style decks. I mean, you used to see it done with Leonin Arbiters and all these other kinds of, embarrassing by today's standards cards. Not saying they could never come back, but certainly not good with what's going on now. Now it's kind of more of a Flicker deck. You see it instead of taking that Death and Taxes name, it's more of a Flicker thing because of, Flicker Wisp in addition to the Felia stuff going on. And particularly, like you mentioned, calling out those interactions, it's more of what's going on, even though it is still, very Death and Taxes shaped. Creatures, Aether Vial, and really the first Aether Vial deck we've seen since Modern Horizons 2. Fury deleting and Solitude kind of comboing together, delete all of the Aether Vial creature decks that used to be all over the place in Modern. Really, this is the first comeback that I've seen in a long time, is Malevolent Rumble on turn 2 after having both of the namesake Moxen on turn 1 alongside Urza Saga for Alden, somebody we just watched win. Now here having to play again in the final round at 6-1.
But Drake, would you say those are two good cards to hit off Rumble?
That's a pretty good Rumble. That's not bad Rumble. You're rumbling around, you're finding what you need. Charlie Dusterberg, of course, stoic as always. You see a nice championship jacket. This is somebody we've seen quite a bit through our series. No reaction at all to the very extremely powerful Malevolent Rumble hit there. And just waiting to Felia on end step, untap, and any follow-up needs a good one.
Yeah, this is the turn for Charlie. What can he do to sort of stop Alden from going for the combo next turn? Because he knows about the Breach, the stations in the graveyard. He does have an Emperor of Bones, so that can take care of the grinding station at least and make Alden find another copy, and that's what Charlie is going to go for. So yeah, like I said, Alden will now have to find a second copy of that grinding station before we can combo. And looks like Felia's going to flicker out the Scion too. So really doing a good job of not only, nuking the graveyard, but also kind of taxing Alden's mana a little bit.
Yeah, great way to do it, right? You get to tax the mana, like you said, and hit the graveyard. That's two angles you're fighting on. It's really good for a turn 3. Great follow-up. And, of course, laying a little bit of pressure with the Felia as well. Got to deploy the Witch Enchanter back half as a land as well. I'm not sure I'm familiar with the name of that one. Let me get that. That's Witch Blessed Meadow tapped as well to be potentially Flicker Wisped later, and kind of gets the disenchant effect, start flickering that with Felia, then you're really cooking. Disenchant all these Moxen and stuff, and that's really where the lock aspect of this starts to take effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flickering all these destroyers of artifacts and enchantments, as well as the White Orchid Phantom style stuff, really start to constrict the mana for Alden. So, even though he's got Moxen, mana situation's not solved, especially with Saga going away.
Ooh.
Mishra's Research Desk coming off.
Yeah, we want to cycle the Saga, dig a little bit deeper. We do need to find a second station before we can go for it. And Alden's kind of in this weird position, right? Where you don't want to go too crazy, because if you mill over station and don't kill Charlie on the same turn, then the Emperor Bones is going to hit that station again. So you kind of need to sort of do it all in one shot, which, Alden does have a decent amount of mana now with the Amber online as well as the Opal. So does have a little bit of mana, but didn't find one off of the Emery Mill. So I believe the leftovers in hand are... we know about the Breach. I don't know what that last card in hand is for Alden. I think another Emery.
Looks like. Yeah, it looks like Emery, which we're going to deploy now. Wasting no time. Just mill another 4, please.
Find the station.
If we do, we win, right? There's a station.
I think we have enough mana.
We have Breach mana. I can't imagine you play this if you're not planning on playing the Breach after, right?
Well, I think we're missing a Mox. We've already played a land for the turn. So you have one floating. You use the Opal and the floating 1 to play the Breach. You have the Saga untapped, but you don't have the second mana to play the station, I believe. because I don't
Oh,
think he hit a Mox.
well then, yeah, that's awkward. I'm interested. I wonder if that's maybe a misstep. Alden, I mean, a shake of the head there. I think you're right, and I think Alden's kind of piecing that together now. I don't think we want to deploy for exactly the reasons you mentioned. I don't think we want to deploy the second Embry to find the grinding station this turn if we don't have it all rolled up, because otherwise we just lose it to the Emperor Bones, and that's pretty rough. So we'll see what Alden wants to do. A big shake of the head there. So we can crack Mishra's research desk, which we did just get on screen a second ago. So we get to look at the top the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until you next time play that card. We found Mox Amber.
Yeah, now it's enough. Yeah, so now you
and
can
then
build
now we have
Ritual,
the other
Amber in
Mox.
the
So we got
Grave.
bailed out. We
Yep.
did it. Oh, but we have Solitude.
Oh, we didn't do it. I didn't think about
We
this.
didn't do it at all.
Henry.
Charlie's got more in the chamber.
Crazy. So now the Ambers are offline, the Opal's offline, and you're going to lose the second station off of this Emperor Bones. This is a really, really brutal swing here for Alden.
Yeah. So we did that. Yeah, I think Charlie did that with the Amber on the stack. So we just have to sacrifice the other Amber, get rid of it. Don't get to bank it anymore. And now Alden on basically no permanence was about to win. Charlie gets to untap here, exile that second station, and that might just be it. I don't know that Alden could cover the Solitude at any point in time, but I mean, a huge play there from Charlie that might have just won him the game. Having everything there already rolled up on turn 3 with a Skyclave Apparition follow-up, and a nice follow-up as well. And this is so brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're in Alden's seat, you do have a Saga in play. So maybe you could rip a land, and then the land could let you go towards Saga tokens. But Charlie kind of has that covered too with the Felia, right? If you go towards Saga tokens, Charlie can just start flickering those.
Right. And permanents don't work anymore because Skyclave Apparition, just exiling these Moxen and stuff, that doesn't work. Your tokens don't work as a Felia. Emperor of Bones is covering your graveyard. I think we're covered on all angles here, even with the Saga in play, but we're going to be preordaining, looking for something else. Is Alden, who had, a super powered Malevolent Rebel on turn 2, got bailed out by the Mishra's research desk to find the second Mox, to think that he had it rolled up. But Charlie, with that critical Solitude, looks to be good enough, as Alden's life total quickly diminishing, and Charlie just wasted no time laying these beatdowns.
Yeah, and I mean, really, this game came down to just Alden kind of putting the grinding station into the graveyard before he had the opportunity to combo, right? Where Alden, had basically everything set up, but because he put the station into the graveyard and passed, was able to, Charlie is able to eat it with the Emperor Bones at sorcery speed, and that that Flicker Wisp is going to go after the Urza Saga. Where I think we're trying to see if we can just go, the coalition victory style, where it's just no permanence, flawless victory, I guess.
Yeah, because we get to get rid of the breeding pool, and then we get to Witch Enchanter the Urza Saga with the land. And yeah, we're approaching flawless victory time, because Charlie cracking a smile, normally quite stoic. Yeah, you have no permanence. We're done here. We're done. All right,
Flawless victory achieved.
1. Yeah, we did it. Flawless victory indeed. No life points, no permanence, and eventually no graveyard. I mean, Emperor Bones would have taken care of that. So a convincing victory for Charlie Dusterberg back on the series. And for Alden, somebody we just saw win a very convincing victory, has some uphill work to do. Let's take a look at the sideboard, see what Alden has to work with against this Orzhov Flicker deck. Excuse me. So back to the sideboard go. Seen it before, gonna be seeing it again, I think. We have 1 Besage Who Endures, 4 Consign to Memory, 1 Flame of Anor, 1 Jace Wielder of Mysteries, 2 Nature's Clay, 1 Fifthing Needle, 1 Unholy Heat, 2 Veil of Summer, and 2 Whip Flare. What do you want against the Orzhov Flicker strategy?
All right, so Whip Flare's fantastic card, being able to kill all the small creatures. Flame of Anor is something you could go towards at killing very specific surgical pieces. It is 3 mana, so it's a little expensive. Beseiju could maybe go after Aether Vial. But honestly, Drake, the card that I am the most interested in out of Alden Cates' sideboard, which might sound kind of strange, is Consigned to Memory, where, normally good against colorless Eldrazi decks, but believe it or not, the Orzhov deck has a lot of triggered abilities. You think Flicker Wisp, Solitude, Witch Enchanter, Skyclave, Recruiter. You can even counter the return the battlefield trigger off of both Felia and Flicker Wisp, so the permanent just stays exiled forever. I feel like Consign is a really big part of this matchup, and I think a card that, honestly, Alden might just want all 4 copies.
Yeah, I mean, even on, especially the play, I mean, you can tag like Aether Vials too. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
utility there. And that's, I mean, the reason we see it in 4-ofs and so many sideboards in the modern format, unsurprised to see it has applications here as well. So a lot of tools here for Alden, it sounds like. Let's take a look at Charlie Dusterberg and his take on the Orzhov Flicker deck. Again, we saw Theo Jung piloting this strategy earlier. Let's take a look at what we're working with here, specifically in the sideboard. We got another copy of Even Interrupter, 2 copies of Deafening Silence, 2 March of Otherworldly Light, 1 Plague Engineer, 3 Thoughtseize, 3 White Orchid Phantom, and 3 Wrath of the Skies. What do you want against the Breach strategy?
So Charlie wants to go towards stuff that prevents Alden from doing the combo, right? So even Interrupter, very good at being able to tax cards from the graveyard, like Underworld Breach. Same thing with Deafening Silence, can't cast more than 1 spell per turn. March of Otherworldly Light is fantastic against Urza Saga, and to a lesser extent, Wrath of the Skies as well, which is a little more mana intensive from Charlie's side of things, but does clean up all of the zeros and the sagas and the construct tokens. So Charlie has quite a few options here, and it kind of depends on how much he wants to sideboard out. Because looking at the main deck, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of bad cards, and not exactly sure how Charlie wants to kind of position himself in the postboard games.
Yeah, I think the crux of it is the removal. How much of the Solitudes, how much of the Fatal Pushes do you want?
Yeah.
Versus do you want Thoughtseizes to go after combo stuff? You know, do you want to is just taking care of the Tamios and Emerys going to be good enough of the time? It certainly wasn't game 1, right? Being able to very easily pick off the Emery during a critical moment. Is that how it plays out a lot of the time? Less sure, but I can tell you who knows, and that's Charlie Dusterberg, as the players are shuffling up here for game number 2. Very quick Magic played by both of these players. And again, this is the last round of Swiss. We'll be bringing you the top 8 of our 10K showdown. A lot on the line for these players. Charlie Dusterberg, I'm sure, looking to make it back to the championship for 2025. And, for Alden, someone I've not seen play as much. An impressive run with Grinding Breach so far. Been very impressed with the sequencing and certainly the power level of his choice of deck. Let's see. Both players mulliganing here, though. Who operates better with less cards? Have to kind of like Charlie's spot. At the end of the day, his interaction attacks. And I really like those kinds of cards on a mulligan.
Well, and on top of that, Charlie has, excuse me, a lot of ways to recoup the cards, right? You have Recruiter of the Guard, goes and finds a card. Overlord of the Baelmerk plus Feliath, you can assemble those 2 cards. Like that just undoes a single mulligan by itself. So Charlie has a lot of ways to kind of get that card back. Now, that's not to say that Alden doesn't either. And I think in the postboard games, Alden just kind of wants to, I don't really think you kind of, we've talked about this before, where the Breach deck has this ability to sideboard into a bigger kind of sort of grindier deck. I'm not sure this is the matchup that you want to do that in. I think Alden wants to try and just get the game over with as quick as possible before Charlie gets that value train rolling.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me, especially after that incredibly convincing Game 1 victory. And we are off to the races here. Speaking of, Alden very quickly sacrificing a Scalding Tarn. Going to be doing some fetch shock action, I imagine. There's Steam Vents. We have a little Preordained or something more powerful. I mean, Tamios and stuff like that. It's funny to think of Preordained as once on the ban list, and now not even the most powerful blue 1-drop we could play, as Tamio is going to hit the battlefield for Alden. Inquisitive Student.
Any Aether Vials from Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about consign. Be a good time for it.
Not a lot of ones in Charlie's deck, unless you board it in the Thoughtseize. Which,
sure
okay,
did.
there you go.
And good targets for it, too. I mean, both these cards are good. I think the Breach is a little bit better, but,
Yeah, I would say so. But, I mean, so, as I mentioned, not necessarily wanting to go toward, or maybe Alden didn't. I'm not sure if Alden wants to go towards the grinding plan, but, in a spot like this, where you got 2 Urza Sagas, it doesn't sound that bad. It's, Charlie does have 3 Wrath of the Skies in the sideboard, so does have some ways to stop that, but is going to need one of those. And we're going to just get rid of the Tamio. Love it.
Yeah, these Solitudes have looked great from Charlie. Just excellent timing, and they're really good. They're worth the 2 cards, which is surprising to me. I mean, this is, when you think of the Grinding Breach deck, there's enough going on that you don't really think that a 2-for-1 removal spell is going to be that good, but just being 0 mana, obviously is powerful. Being 0 mana in instant speed and exiling, all 3 of those things really come together really nicely to make Solitude a really good tool for Charlie's strategy in this matchup.
Yeah, and the thing about being in a spot like this from Charlie's side of things is if you don't kill the Tamio, right? So you're 2-for-1ing yourself to Solitude the Tamiyo. If you don't kill the Tamiyo, Alden's going to get an extra card out of it. So he's already going to be up sort of like his own 2-for-1. So you're sort of just in a weird way trading even on cards for the Tamiyo rather than giving Alden the extra clues and, the extra material to make the sagas better. So, and what that signifies to me is that, Charlie understands the role here where, just got to look at Alden's hand, knows there's not really any threat of a combo, wants to try and at this point, Charlie wants to sort of play that bit of a longer game because that's where Alden is kind of forced into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think that Alden, as much as Alden's forced into it, it's kind of awkward. You're not really going to be able to maximize the tokens here, right? You get to make the third one here. I guess you can't if you get a mana source. So you can't if we're going this direction.
I think we might have missed the bobble trigger there. Not sure.
You're not clear. Also, interesting play there. I want to go back to Charlie's turn. Chose to put a tap land in. I think we had the chance to make it untapped, and we have an even interrupter. Yeah, bobble trigger was missed. Got confirmation on that. That could be huge.
All right. Well, missed the bobble trigger, but then we'll get a card back off the desk, so it's even, right?
Is that how that works?
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fine. So 2 constructs here, and Alden's going to deploy that other saga, so Charlie's going to be under the gun here. Not exactly sure what the leftovers are here, but going to need a pretty good follow-up
Like I said, he chose not to deploy the Interrupter. I kind of wonder if he's playing towards a Wrath. This guy certainly has, I think, a Witch Enchanter in hand can start to pick off some of these problematic creatures. And of course, if you start flickering that, then all of the saga plan falls apart. But as for right now, I mean, Charlie's almost half dead, and we've really only gotten one attack in.
Yeah, I think Charlie's hand is land, Aven Interrupter, and Witch Enchanter, which, the Interrupter is good against the combo plan, but if Alden's going towards this construct plan, those Interrupters don't really look nearly as good.
Ugh, Felia picked up, but late to the party. We'll see what Charlie can assemble. Might just be, and I mean, this is classic creature decks without Aether Vial, right? Aether Vial would have made this entire game very smooth for Charlie, even on turn 2. Like, even if you're just doing it on turn 2, like, you're still good here. Not having none of that going on means that, I mean, Alden with the Maxin and all these kinds of cheap spells is really going to be able to kind of get underneath Charlie a little bit, which is kind of what you called out. Alden should be really reaching to do here.
Right. Yeah. The white-black deck, when you're under the gun and playing one spell a turn, it's kind of tough because a lot of Charlie's cards, like something like Felia, sort of require an extra turn to get going. Felia is great against constructs, but not when you're in a spot like this where you're just facing down lethal the next turn, right? Because Alden can just go make a saga token, fetch a 0. They're both 6/6s. And Charlie's going to shock here, presumably kill probably one of the constructs, I would guess, over the saga.
Yeah, I think you have to, or you're just dead, right? Or you have to like chump block. Oh no, we're going after the saga. Okay, so I think that prices you into chump blocking. Does that give you enough time to get Felia going? I don't know that it does.
Yeah, see, the weird thing is now you chump block and you're still on the hook for minimum 4 damage.
Right, exactly. Minimum 4 damage is kind of the key.
Yeah.
Malevolent Rumble doesn't necessarily fix that, but like a Mox Amber ups the clock. So does Aether Spellbomb. Aether Spellbomb. Is that just lethal?
If there is a blue source in hand, I don't know if Alden has a land left over.
Oh, he'd be one short, right? Because that'd be 2 4/4s.
Oh, sure. Right, because you get the Scion. Yep, okay.
Yeah, so we get the Scion. We have Mox Opal online.
If we you can use the Opal to sack the Amber, but then you're still short an artifact.
But then you're short an artifact for lethal, but then one creature isn't good enough anymore, which is appealing. I mean, we could wait. We could not. We'll see exactly what direction Alden wants to go. I don't know that it matters. Attacking with both, I mean, a block is required and you're in the same spot, but bouncing a lot of Charlie's creatures isn't good. So I do like going here because bouncing Witch Enchanter is just bad, even with Charlie going to 1. So just this
any Wraths?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Wrath Disguise or Bust looks like the equation to me.
I mean, if Charlie draws Wrath, I would say he might even be a favorite at this point.
I would agree. I mean, you put him to 2 lands or whatever, 1 card, man. Like, that's a completely different game.
Looks like it's a black card, either an Overlord or a Bowmaster. Looks like Overlord.
Overlord. Okay. This is our first chance. Let's see if Overlord can be good here. I haven't seen it. Impending 5. Enters or attacks, mill 4. Then you may return a non-avatar creature card or planeswalker from graveyard to hand. Okay, so Solitude back to hand is meaningful.
So now our hand is Solitude Interrupter Felia. So now you can go Solitude. Well, it's not good enough, right? You can go Solitude Pitch Interrupter, kill one token, then the spell bomb bounces the Felia to. Oh, but if the spell bomb bounces, it's a 3/3, so you get a 1.
Right. And you could chump block, and then a good draw maybe gets you out. I mean, you're empty-handed, right? And that's no good. Oh, found a Haywire Might. That might be the door on everything.
Yeah, because that even just an extra artifact, assuming there's enough mana for Alden to both play the Haywire Might and sack the Spellbomb, I think it's enough because now you have 6 artifacts right now. Solitude kills a construct, that's 5 artifacts. Spellbomb, Sacrifice, Bounce Felia, that's 4. And Charlie's at 4, so. And heads up play for Charlie playing the Felia first to see if Alden will let him go to blocks rather than play the Solitude. I mean, the Solitude is face up.
He's not, and that's exactly everything's face up. And you can only assume his other card in hand can't be better than another just a white card. So if he has it, he did the math. The calculations. Aether Spellbomb was lethal thanks to that Haywire Might punching the door on the game. Wasn't having favor to win anyway, but did manage to get it done with the Saga strategy. One thing was kind of unexpected for me. I mean, I did not expect against all the Flicker Wisps and the Felias and the Witch Enchanters for the Saga plan to really be good enough, but it certainly was, and 2 of them I'm sure helps. But I mean, no Aether Vial. There's a lot of other things going on for Charlie that were not as favorable, I'd say, in that spot to make it to where the Saga was able to close the door of that game.
And I think a big part of that, right? You saw Charlie draw 2 sideboard cards, an Aven Interrupter and a Thoughtseize. Neither of those cards are good against the Saga plan. So if Charlie loads up and draws too many sideboard cards that are not named Wrath of the Skies, that is a spot where Alden can actually sneak a win with those Saga plans. And drawing 2 of them helps too. But yeah, I think that was a very good showcase of, it's like the Breach deck is so good because you need to have a very specific number of sideboard cards to be able to interact with the combo. But a lot of the times the cards that are good against the combo are not good against the fair plan. And that's why this deck has so many different angles of attack.
Right, exactly. Both these players, I mean, we got a little look-see at them as they were shuffling up. No sideboard changes for either one. So they like their configurations, all the things that they chose to bring in, and maybe some information to be gained there. I mean, we saw Thoughtseizes for Charlie, obviously wants those on the play more likely, but you maybe can at least fake it a little bit. I didn't see any kind of reaching for the sideboards at all. These players playing, like I said, a very quick Magic, and Charlie wasting no time, firing off an early Thoughtseize, some zeros, a lot of zeros, and Lance.
Charlie has another Thoughtseize in hand too. So yeah, like you said, maybe a play draw thing. Maybe he wants to go towards more copies on the play than the draw. I would have to imagine the vials got cut because I'm not exactly sure. Like if you cut creatures and add Thoughtseizes, then maybe your creature count is too low. So not entirely sure if maybe the Aether Vials hit the sideboard.
Why if you have Wrath of the Skies, you just blow up your own vial? That's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, that's a good point too.
We'll see. We'll see exactly what Charlie said. I mean, it would have been good last game. I don't know that it's good every game, right? Because normally the Sagas are handled. You have so many cards good against the token plan. So it's not even like Wrath of the Skies is good in every game. Now, we'll see how game 3 plays out here. A lot more traditional hand. No Sagas to be seen for Alden. A lot of 0 mana artifacts and Haywire Might. Breach, of course, gluing it all together. No Breach. What can we make shake? We can cycle a Bobble. Wow, I can
cycle a Boggle.
Boggle. Slippery
Boggle has cycling?
Yeah, wouldn't make it playable. It's still embarrassing. Wrath of the Skies, see you later.
We'll get there eventually.
I don't know about that. I mean, the format's coming full circle. We're not going that far. Haywire Might is deployed. Going to Bobble now, holding the other artifacts for the moment.
All right, so I saw a second Thoughtseize here for Charlie. See if there's a Felia. That's kind of the 2-drop that we want to play the most here because it just unlocks so many different plays on turn 3. So we are going to go for a Thoughtseize instead, where, curving Felia into either Overlord. And see, this is the big problem with Thoughtseize, right? Charlie leading heavy on those Thoughteizes in post-board games, but, you draw too many sideboard cards. Sometimes you get buried by a Saga. That's what happened in game 2, and maybe that might be what happens in game 3. We'll have to see.
Well, it's not a 0, right? We get to take Mox Opal, which slows down the Saga activation. You can't do it as quickly.
Yeah.
I think that could be meaningful. I mean, especially with Charlie on the play, right? We're just gonna have more time to get established with these creatures, and we've seen what happens when that happens based on game one. Now, game two, I mean, even though it kind of looked like a blowout, Charlie was not that far from stabilizing. He was doing a very good job weathering the storm, and obviously, if you can get any of the flicker engines going at all, things end very quickly. So we'll see what Charlie can cook up here. But even though like the saga was found, I don't think it's a zero. I don't think we're done. I don't think this is necessarily bad news for Charlie quite yet.
No. Yeah, he does have a lot of
the beat downs.
A lot of answers to it, like you mentioned, Witch Enchanter, plenty of things that can answer the saga. And with Charlie on the play, has a little bit more time to deploy that, isn't as under the gun like he was last game. On the draw, Alden had the fast saga, had the second one too. Whereas, we found the answer.
Yep. Do you want Wrath of Disguise? Yes. And what a powerful Wrath of Disguise. Back to one land goes Alden. A great draw here for Charlie. And once again, a great reason. If you have those in your deck, I don't think you have Vials in your deck. I agree with you. And honestly, really smart from Alden. Chose to hold the Mox Amber. And that's actually why I didn't play the Mox Opal last turn, right? There's no Storm counter or anything to really think about. So the reason to hold Mox, and even in the face of a Thoughtseize deck, is not to get destroyed by Wrath of Disguise. Did a good job of that. Got to keep this Mox Amber around as the consolation prize. Now that Wrath of Disguise was still quite good, but we'll see if the Amber, got to hold it. Don't want to lose it unnecessarily. Is that good enough to help rebuild afterwards? We're about to find out.
And Drake, I think Charlie has a second Wrath in his hand.
That's going to be pretty hard to beat. I mean, there's no pressure. So these Wraths, I mean, they're good. But if you're not ending the game anytime soon, they're not as good. And we've seen that come up, right? When you can sweep this deck, you can exile the graveyard, you do all these things. But if you're not ending the game as well, if there's no pressure to back it up, this Grinding Breach deck can really rebuild from not a lot of resources. And here is an Underworld Breach proper. Okay. Bobble time.
So just draw a couple cards. I wonder if that signifies, would that signify to Charlie that there's another Breach in hand? Or maybe either that, or there's just not really any action in Alden's hand. Maybe it's a bunch of air and he just feels kind of pressured into, using this as a sort of like a divination style thing, or just wants to get a couple of cards because, 2 lands in hand for Alden.
We're shifting Woodland specifically. So if you need a Breach later, it is a Breach. So that's a big reason to kind of pull for it too.
Does have the Woodland.
All right.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of this deck too, which we saw come up a couple of times before, right? The Woodland, when we saw it on camera last, just being able to, you can kind of go for a small value breach early and then have access to that Woodland later on.
The most face-up Aven Interrupter in the universe. I love cards like this, where it's like, what could it be? I passed in my deck of all cards that cost less than 3 with 3 mana up. What could it be?
the green player passing with 4 mana open, could be anything.
Don't worry about it. Telegraphing. But I mean, again, with Aven Interrupter specifically, what could you do about it?
Okay. And it's not a 0 on the battlefield, right? It still taxes breaches from the graveyard, Emeries from the graveyard, so it still does some things.
Yeah, it's still a hate bear. I mean, it doesn't cost 2, so it's like a hate Windrake? We're gonna use Windrake.
Hate Ogre?
Sure. It flies. Come on. Windrake.
All right. Hate. Well, I mean, you could just say hate Drake, but
you know what? That's fair. I'll take that. I deserve that, I'm sure. Here's Overlord of the Bale Merc going to be impending. And that gets a Felia. That's a great pickup.
Yeah, Felia is nice here. It does have the land to be able to deploy it. And now, see, you mentioned Charlie didn't have any pressure earlier. Felia flickering the Overlord.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Went from 0 to 9 power in play.
We have, speaking of zeros, we have 2 zeros, 2 Mox in here for Alden and a Jace. Yeah, that turns on the Mox Amber. You can draw cards, get the graveyard restocked. I mean, it's not weak. Oh, we have Ephemerate. Ooh. Tameo follow-up. Chose not to Ephemerate, even Interrupter. A lot of patience. Look at Jace, I think their mysteries.
Part of that is he really wants to get this Felia down.
Right.
Because not only does Felia draw an extra card off the Overlord, it also represents so much pressure. So if you use the Ephemerate here, you only have 2 power in play versus letting the Jace happen, dealing with the Jace at some later turn. As long as you're stopping Alden from comboing, I think Charlie is now at a position, as we see the Wrath of the Skies being cast, Charlie is now in a position where he can win the long game. Right, this is Felia, Overlord. Charlie's got the long game locked up. He just needs to not die to the combo. And I think Felia is a good way to do that because it also puts so much more pressure into play to kind of close the game out before Alden can find the pieces.
Absolutely. And you know, it can't you get a look at Felia there. The powerful pickup here. Again, one of those kind of not immediate standouts of MH3, now really getting its time to shine. This one is a bear, 2/2 flash. And of course, whenever it attacks, so you do have to actually attack with it, not an ETB, you can exile it to one other target, non permanent. That's opponent's or yours. And then at the beginning of the next instep, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it entered under your control, you get a counter. So now you see that Felia being upgraded to a 3/3. You see this Overlord losing its impending counters because it just gets flickered and all those get shaken off. And now, as you mentioned, Alden under the gun as far as pressure goes, but got to keep Jace in play, as it was not a lethal attack for Jace, the Felia as a 2/2 and the Aven. So we do have that going for us, but not much else.
Yeah, there is a window where Alden can... Now we have Delirium, right? So Alden does
Right.
have the ability to woodland into a breach. The problem is the interrupters there. So even if you were able to... What are we copying? We are copying breach. Now, I'm not sure that that does that much because of the interrupter.
Yeah, the interrupter says spells your opponent's cast from graveyards or from exile cost 2 more.
Yeah.
So can we... Whip Flare costs 4.
Right. He has a heat in the graveyard, but that costs 3. We can't do this, right? Am I missing something on? Okay.
No.
Yeah, Charlie's
Alden just
pointing to it.
missed
Okay. Okay.
Wait.
Eee.
Yeah, I think Alden, based on Alden's reaction to that, it did not look like that was on Alden's radar, and that is a disaster if we just missed that.
I mean, that's just lethal, right? 9 damage in play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he just counted that too. Oh, and there's lethal in play. Actually, nothing. I mean, to Alden's credit, I don't know if there's anything you could do anyway. I mean,
I don't.
The squeeze was on with this even interrupter card.
I don't really think Alden had a way out of this game. I think his hand is another breach, a station, and I don't even know what the last card is. But yeah, I think Alden was just dead no matter what.
Does the Shifting Woodland go to the graveyard? I think it does. The judge is going to point that out. Yeah, we did make that a breach. So as much as I know it doesn't matter, that does need to go to the graveyard. And I think Charlie, whatever. The judges, whatever. You both get failures to maintain. Let's move along with things. Great. Draw, attack GRVs. 5 billion. Yeah, okay. Fist bump, we're done. That is more than lethal as Charlie Dusterberg going to dust up Alden and punch his ticket almost certainly to the top 8 at X and 1 with his take on the Orzhov Flicker deck. New kind of hotness, and good to see Eighth of Vial back. We didn't get to see it those matches. Good to see it back in action, but that did end quick enough that we do actually have a backup feature match for you that I think we're going to get to play from the beginning. So it's going to be Mackenzie Endress versus Will Kowalczyk. Grinding Breach once again versus, I believe, also Grinding Breach. I think it's just a mirror.
Well, I think there might be a fourth color. No, there might be a fourth color. So Will is playing Teamer, and Mackenzie is also Teamer. There's no white cards here. So this is a Teamer mirror match. We got you baited.
Yeah, we did get you baited. Wow. And I was actually talking a little bit about how there's not a lot of Ren and 6 decks to go around. I mean, Will Kowalczyk has one in the main, one in the side. So did actually show up with some Ren and 6s.
Yeah, this was a card that I've seen floating around in some of the breach decks. Like I mentioned, there's these kind of different plans in postboard plans, like grindy cards that people have been trying out. I've seen some Ren and 6s. I've seen some Life from the Loams, Express iterations like Jace's, all these kinds of things. And, again, the plan is just to make sure you have some sort of alternative threat in the postboard games. Ren and 6 is a pretty good one at that too, because being able to rebuy sagas kind of leans more into that. Just, I'm just going to present a bunch of sagas, make you answer every single one of them, and then eventually get to a spot where I can set up a combo.
Speaking of setting up a combo, very powerful Malevolent Rumble on turn 2 for Will Kowalczyk as well. You mentioned one of the more powerful cards in the deck, found Mox Opal as an option, but took the breach, still has the sign left over, and a turn 1 Tameo is going to get to attack this turn. Clue coming for Mackenzie, and the follow-up is going to be a Rumble of his own. Rumbling all over the place for both of these players. Finds a similar Rumble. It's Opal, it's Breach, takes the Breach. Seen this before.
Yeah, now as far as this matchup is concerned, the straight up teamer mirror, there's definitely like if we were talking about actual four color versus teamer, there's maybe some interesting dynamic there where you have the portable holes against the other combo pieces. But when it just comes down to a straight up teamer mirror, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience in this mirror match, but looking at the deck list on paper, I would have to imagine it's just a race, like who can get to the combo faster. If you look at these deck lists, there's not a ton of interaction against the combo. Haywire Mite's probably the most significant one, where if you leave up Haywire Mite, you can pop the breach on their turn. But other than that, there's not really a lot here that stops the combo. There's one
We got
spell
some
snare in max
yeah,
deck, so
we got like one or two spell snares in the decks and like a bolt
at least
or
in
whatever.
game one.
Yeah, that's not a lot. That is not a lot of material. As Will Kowalczyk, the first to deploy Emery, has a bobble as well, and not quite Metalcraft yet. Actually, kind of awkward. I mean, then now you have to use the the spawn to activate the saga to get the third artifact. It's kind of goofy. Does find stomping ground. A lot coming for Will Kowalczyk, and I mean, doesn't look like Breach is a kill yet, right? We have a Opal, and we have a grinding
good,
station.
right?
Is this lethal?
We have an Opal in the grave. So we can just go tap Opal, cast Opal, float mana, cast station.
Oh, no, we have the Amber. I was like, we don't have a third artifact, and we did find a third artifact. We do have an Amber. I missed the Amber. So here we go. Yeah, now it's all trivial.
Yeah, so Amber, Opal, cast station, exile 3, leave 3 cards in the graveyard. Good to go. Now, looking at max deck list, you did call out that one spell snare, but that probably would have been happened by now. And there you go. Will take.
Yeah, the real thing is either Spellbomb. That's one's in play. You need to be able to beat that. But of course, the Mox Opals mean you do get to beat that. So, of course, Mac going to be down a game there for game number one. Will Kowalczyk did, as you mentioned, just kind of assemble the combo on turn 3. Not really a lot else to analyze. Like I said, did have to kind of play around the Spellbomb, but was able to get it assembled thanks to a very powerful Malevolent Rumble. Not going to look at the sideboards. This is a time-shifted matchup, and you've seen the Grinding Breach sideboard a lot. Just imagine we talked a little bit about how counterspells and Nature's Claims are good in the matchup, and we're here for game number 2, where Mackenzie Endress will be on the play.
Yeah, they have very similar sideboards. The only thing I want to point out is you mentioned this. Will has a second run in 6, and Mac has none of that stuff. The Jace they both have, or actually, no, Will doesn't have a Jace. So Mac has a Jace, Will has a run in 6. That's really the only difference here. I'm not sure if those cards really matter in this matchup. I mean, the thing is,
all that setup, I don't know if it even matters.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, like in post-board games, even if you look at the sideboards and try to figure out, like, are there more answers to the combo in the post-board games, right? There's a Boseiju, which kind of helps, and I honestly, Will's Boseijus are better than Mac's Boseijus because of the run in 6. So I think that could be a big part of this matchup, and Will maybe wanting to board in the run in 6. So that could be something.
That makes sense to me.
They both have Nature's Claims, they both have Consigns, something like that. So I think it's a lot of the same thing, just kind of like racing to the combo, but there's a little bit more interaction in the post-board games, at least.
We'll bobble on and preordain on turn 1 for Mac. Hopefully quite a bit of setup there to get stuff going. Doing some surveilling.
Oh, I'm going to put you to the test, Drake. What is that card that Mac milled?
Oh, I have no idea. It doesn't look like it does have power and toughness. So I'm going to go Thassa's Oracle is my guess. Final answer. I don't know.
Yeah, that it's some secret layer. I have no idea. Chat can tell us.
It looks like, okay, hold on. I'm going to zoom in here with my enhanced view. I'm trying to figure out what it costs. Is that what? That's not an Emery, right? It's an Emery.
Oh, yeah, being told it's an Emery.
It doesn't cost blue. It's a 2 and a blue. It's an Emery. That's an Emery.
Okay.
We're wrong. We're so wrong.
Yeah,
I respect Mac and like all the full art stuff, but it's tough sometimes for me up here.
The lands too. See, the lands I can do. I don't mind the lands. That's a Hedge Maze. That's an Otawara. We're good to go.
Sure. Haywire Mite coming down off versus Saga for Will Kowalczyk, and back to Mac Endress we go. A lot less Malevolent Rumbling going on, which means there's a lot less setting up to be done, but very quickly fetching is Mac. Do we have a potential for a Breach this turn? I don't know. About to find out. 3 mana is it's an Emery.
We're just doing it the hard way.
Full retail.
No discount here.
Oh, there's all the zeros. We milled 2 baubles and an opal. So we found all of the things that were supposed to make this Emery cheaper.
You should have drawn them in the wrong order.
Yeah. The classic skill issue. Should have drawn them in the different order. Well, Will has no problems with the zeros. Found a bauble and a Mox Opal. This one has Metalcraft already. has Saga already dialed up to 2.
See, all of this that we talk, all this stuff that we were talking about, where the breach mirror match just comes down to comboing. I mean, Will's just got a Saga and 3 artifacts. I mean, if Max see, this is the thing about Saga, right? If your opponent's draw fails and you just make 2 6/6s, like that's gonna get the job done a lot of the time.
Well, there's a little bit more going on too, right? Like we just talked about, we skipped over it, so maybe it's it's not as much. But like after Sideboard, there's a lot more interaction to work with, like just spells that stop the combo early. So the players are going to set up to be a little bit more of a mid-ranging mirror rather than just a straight 2 ships in the night combo race, I think. Now, Matt, content to just play lands. Emery did get Unholy Heated without Delirium. So, I mean, all these cards are not really exactly functioning on all cylinders at the moment, but...
Get a Breach, maybe?
Okay, Breach time. A lot of cards in the yard.
Yeah, there is a Haywire Might on Will's side of things. So, Mac is going to get to play 1 spell, right? 1 spell before Will has the opportunity, because you do get priority. There's no trigger with the Breach. It's just flat line of text that says you may cast spells, blah, blah, blah. So, Mac has priority to cast 1 spell before Will can pop off that Haywire Might. So the question for Mac is, which 1 spell do you get? I don't have an artifact for Emery. There's the zeros that we talked about. I mean, I don't know. Past Emery's and zeros, I don't know what else there is. Yeah, he's just going to fire up a bobble.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's still like a 2-for-1-ish, right? Like you answer the Haywire Might and get a bobble for your trouble. It's like, not the worst.
You basically
got nothing else going on.
Mac basically just cast Disenchant, draw a card, which is kind of fine, especially if you have a second Breach and you kind of need to clear the Haywire Might for this, for the follow up Breach.
It stops a token from being made. Now we only have 1 mana, so we can't make an Urza Saga token. That could be a big deal if this game's going to grind for a little bit longer. And this backup Breach in hand. Yeah, I mean, overall, for being what looked to be kind of an embarrassing Breach turn for Mac, I think a lot really went Mac's way.
Yeah, I kind of had to fight through that Haywire Might at some point. I don't think he milled over a station, so I don't think we're quite all the way there yet, but does have the zeros, has the Emerys in the graveyard, and some other stuff there. Can maybe, do a little bit of fetching with the turn as well.
Yeah, get a little plump graveyard and still have a little bit of a follow-up. Although Soul Guide Lantern off the Saga is going to shut a lot of that down.
Yeah, that too.
And so we did find Soul Guide Lantern. Mox Opal does not make mana. We do have the mana floating from the Saga. It chose not to make a token again. And it's going to be an Emery follow-up. Heck of a follow-up.
Yeah, now the question for Will is, does Will have the Breach in hand for next turn? Because kind of has a good amount of setup here. Has... I guess not a ton in the graveyard. There's a Haywire Might, a bobble, could do some bobbling, but yeah, like you mentioned, Soul Guide.
So that's something.
Soul Guide Lantern can kind of make it so Matt can't really combo off this turn. I mean, I guess you could do sort of a similar thing where if you have an extra Breach, you play the Breach to force the Lantern, but I don't know that.
I mean, how many of those do you got to go? I don't know that he wants to do that. Well, I wonder how much just Breaches are just like fair cards in the post-board games, right? We're doing stuff like this, where we're just kind of picking off Emerys, doing this kind of stuff. So like your Breaches aren't really there to kill; they're there to just like put Emery back in play, like that kind of stuff. Because most of the time you're not going to be able to line up a kill through all of the various ways you can interact.
Yeah, definitely happens a lot more in the post-board games. I think Mac had another Unholy Heated hand. It's not a red card.
Yeah, I think so. No, it's a Lightning Bolt. That's much better, because Unholy Heat, the Delirium can get shut off by the Soul Guide Lantern, and then it wouldn't kill Tamio. So mattered a lot to be a Lightning Bolt there, not an Unholy Heat.
Yeah, and I think Mackenzie has 1 bolt? Let me look at the list. Yeah, 1 bolt, 1 Unholy Heat.
I assume that's like another backdoor in case all your like Thassa's Oracle stuff's gone. You could just like bolt them to death or whatever.
Yeah, I cast it a bunch of times off of red mana from Opal.
And here is 2 mana for a Thassa's Oracle. All right.
Yeah, little Augurabolus.
Yeah.
Not even Augurabolus. Well, I actually see, if you think about it, Augurabolus is 2 mana 1/3. Put the top 4 cards of your library in the bottom. Thassa's Oracle, 2 mana 1/3. Put the top 2 cards of your library in the bottom. So
you can choose to keep up to 1, and so you can just choose to keep 0 if they're bad. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's Thassa's Oracle, 2 Devotion. Got to look at the top 2. Get to put up to 1, and then of course after that is when you win the game. I love using Thassa's Oracle for like whatever you want to call it, Augurabolus mode.
How about using Thassa's Oracle to attack your opponent for 1?
Beat downs. Talk to me. I gotta win that Haywire Might race. Yeah, this is just plan F for all of these decks. We got just a Thassa's Oracle beatdown, 5 lands on each side, now 6. Just what are we doing?
I think we're at a point where we've used all the letters in the library, so we're now trying to figure, or letters in the alphabet, excuse me, and we're trying to figure out, not plan F, this is like, we're past Z at this point.
We're like alpha. We're into the Greek alphabet. We're done.
Yeah.
Alpha, beta, gamma. Here we go. Oh, yeah, this is tough. This is a lot of mana. We're close to casting the Ulamogs.
What about Jace, though? Talk to me, Jace.
I mean, Jace would be excellent. That does something. It has text.
Yeah. Yeah, Mackenzie has 1 Jace, and Will's got 2 Ren and 6s. So that's kind of where we want to go.
Yeah, they'd be very good. I mean, picking up Saga over and over again. I mean, what a grindy match. We mentioned, does it get more grindy? Yes. And both of these hands are probably full. I mean, it's all spells, right? It's all spells, full of counter spells. Here's a Malevolent Rumble. Yeah, no. Snare that. Not a chance.
14 turn clock.
Counter magic.
14 turn clock. You better watch out, Will. That Thassa's Oracle's coming for you.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. This Thassa's Oracle's actually just clocking in, doing some work.
I mean, he's got to kill it eventually.
The fetch lands are too.
You want to fetch? You want to fetch? You sure about
that?
That's
a turn. That's a time walk. This is embarrassing. Wow. Oh, nothing at all going on, huh?
It's kind of exactly what we talked about, right? We're game 1, less interaction, all 2 ships passing in the night. Game 2, stack of interaction, attacking with Thassa's Oracle. Just this is how it goes, I guess.
Oh, 4 mana. We found a card. Jace! It's Jace. And the Will's reaction, I think, says it all. That's a good one here.
Yeah.
If nothing's going on, a Planeswalker is quite strong. And a lot of the counter magic doesn't really work. You need multiple spell pierces. This Sink into Stupor? Oh, Flame of Mana or Draw 2?
All right. Try and find something. I don't know if Will has a counter spell that can hit the Jace. You have a Snare, a Pierce, and 3 snares and a Pierce. That's it.
A Pierce, it doesn't even work right now. You'd have to like Sink into Stupor plus, I don't even know. And Jace is going to resolve Uptick, and here's a big swing of the game. Using the win conditions. I mean, we talk about these cards as normally just there to win the game, being embarrassing on their own. No, they're great here. Thassa's Oracle applying some beatdowns, defending Jace Wielder of Mysteries. And you get a look at the very powerful rare from War of the Spark. Again, if you would draw no cards while your library has no cards in it, instead of losing, you win. And kind of Laboratory Maniac style, but does have a +1 that mills 2 and draws a card. So you could just get card advantage in the meantime with your win condition.
Yeah, and then you got to think, right? Casting all of those Malevolent Rumbles and Emeries, that's going to mill a bunch of cards off of that too. So you actually end up getting to the win condition on Jace even a little bit faster than you would normally.
Yeah, you could just do what the card says, like mill yourself, and then eventually just like win that way, not through any of the grinding station shenanigans. Well, Will just attempted a breach. That was a good answer, but Mackenzie had the Swan Song, which does give a 2/2. That can pressure Jace. That's like real. But I mean, the Jace is going to draw a lot of cards before that Swan Song gets rid of it. 2 cards milled. Another card coming. Thassa's Oracle no longer can lay beatdowns, unfortunately. Rumble follow-up.
Now I wonder if Matt can just this turn cycle through a couple rumbles and then just mill over his whole deck or something. I don't know. I don't know how many cards we got left, but we're deep into this game.
We found Shifting Woodland. That could just be a breach right now in a very uncounterable way.
Here's the Lantern, though.
Right.
So if you go for Woodland, I guess... I'm trying to think if there's a weird timing window where you can activate or you can cast Breach. If Will responds with Lantern, then you can Woodland and then cast Instance. It's still in response to the Lantern. I don't know what instance there, that Mac has.
I think we have a Bolt.
Flame, right? And there is the Bolt.
It only takes 4 bolts to kill. I mean, that's a lot, but we have a lot of mana. I don't know.
Okay, so 2 for Breach. Will responds with Lantern. 4 for Woodland, right? And then you would have 3, 4, 5, 6. You'd have 3 mana left over, so that's 3 bolts. We're almost there.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's shenanigans. It's not impossible. As a Shifting Woodland of Will's own found. Let's see if he wants to pull the trigger on it. Seems like it's 3. 4 mana. Looks like we are. So we're going to respond here to the activation of Shifting Woodland with a Boseiju. Good answer.
Okay.
Only costs 1 thanks to Jace.
Yep. Yeah, normally Woodland is good against the counter spells, but Boseiju is a nice way to stop that without having the counter spells. So max leftovers, Breach and a land. I don't know what Will's working with over there.
Will seems to have a lot of cards in it, which is surprising. Mackenzie's had this Jace for a while.
Mm.
Seems to have like 2 or 3 cards left.
Now here's the question. Will,
Okay.
I don't know if Will knows that Mackenzie has the Breach in hand. I don't remember if that was revealed off of a Rumble. But, if we do go into Mackenzie's next turn, Will would be aware of the Breach, Lantern, Respond, Woodland line. I wonder if Will is, heads up enough, do you pop the Lantern main phase so that line can't happen?
Oh, so we turned our Shifting Woodland into a Tameo in response to the Boseiju, so that the Boseiju
with extra
effect
mana
fizzled. And so you actually get to keep the Shifting Woodland around because it's a creature now.
But now I think we just have the win if we take that line, right? Because you have, I guess we're still 1 mana short, because I think we can cast 3 bolts off of it.
Yeah, I have to imagine we're short.
We gotta be close.
Think we're short. Put Tameo to bottom, Rumble to top. That flips Tameo, which can get back something. That can get back a bolt.
Yeah, you could even set up the same. You could even bait the same play, right? You go Tameo next turn, maybe Tameo minus target bolt. Will responds with Lantern. You respond Woodland Breach and then bolt 3 times. But that's still only 9 damage.
Well, here's Breach. I think we're looking to pull the trigger on Breach. So here's Breach. I have to imagine we're doing the Lantern thing in response. Will's just kind of trying to figure out to what end. What does this represent? And so that's why we have head in hands right now. Yeah, I mean, there's no universe you don't. The question is, what can Mackenzie do about it? Says, okay, sure, it happens. 2 mana Rumble. So we're just going to start rumbling underneath it. Okay.
Yeah, I think Mackenzie is just trying to mill a bunch of cards, or just cast mill as much of his deck as possible to try and get to that Jace win con, which also kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I still kind of like that Breach Woodland Bolt line, or maybe at some point, but
I don't even know if that works. I mean, there's so much mana going on at play, and then of course what Will has in hand kind of comes into play. And here we go. We have 4 cards left in the deck. Is that true?
Not a lot.
Or is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 cards left in the deck.
5, right? Yeah, 5. So 5 in library. Rumble Mills 4.
So
that would. You know what I want to look
we
at?
picked up Emery, right? So we can't cast Emery, but we can just Rumble again.
Okay. So Will has an Otawara in deck. I don't know. I can't tell if it's in play and I can't tell if it's in the graveyard, but that could be something where if Mackenzie goes to draw a card with an empty library, Will can Otawara the Jason response.
Well, he's like, no mana. Come on. The thing with, even if he has
not this turn.
That costs 2.
I don't know if he has the ability to draw an extra card this turn, though.
Well, Jace draws a card, right? He mills 2 and draws. So
I think he already activated Jace, no? Because it was at 6 last turn, went to 4 off the bird, and he plussed it to 5 this turn. So I think Jace was already activated.
That would change things quite a bit. Okay. So what else? We have Tameo minus still on the table.
Preordain, maybe?
We have Bobble that could do it on upkeep, but again, then you still get Otawara.
Then you run into the risk of Otawara, yeah. The other thing that's interesting too, right, is if you have to pass to Will, then Will can say, okay, say Mackenzie has an empty library, right, and have a Bobble trigger on the stack. Will can respond to the Bobble trigger, Woodland copy Breach, and then heat the Jace.
That'd be bad.
So there's some play here. There's definitely some play here.
Haywire Might into play, which covers you against the Shifting Woodland Breach that's face up.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't activate Tameo, right? Did we activate Tameo?
He plussed it. Tameo starts at 2, so
okay,
he just flipped it that turn, so we did plus it.
I didn't even see the dice move. There's so many permanents in play. I'm just losing it. Oh, this is problematic.
Okay.
Breach out of the box. Yeah, you cast the second
and then immediately breach. Yep. And now Mackenzie does not have a window. And presumably, yeah, that's enough.
That's it. Wow. Breach cast, another breach mattering a ton there for Will Kowalczyk, who managed to pull that one out. I don't know. There was some crazy lines there, some stuff to consider with lightning bolts and what have you. But ultimately, Will Kowalczyk able to win the 2 ships tonight after almost a manual Jace win from Mac Endress. I'll tell you what, the teamer breach, the grinding breach mirror is strange. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of it over the coming weeks in the modern format if this tournament is anything to be believed as far as the strength of that deck does go. Well, either way, that will wrap up both our main and feature match for the final round of Swiss. And I imagine we're going to be seeing more of Will Kowalczyk and, of course, Charlie Dusterberg, who we got to see fell another Grinding Breach deck as well. In our top 8, we're going to get to see the rest of the top 8 and make sure that both those players did make it here in just a little bit. You're not going to want to miss any of that top 8 action. Before we do go, remember, if you're enjoying this content, you're enjoying Streamed Magic, make sure you are following us here on Twitch. And, of course, subscribe if you want access to some sweet emotes and, of course, no ads. But beyond that, we will be taking a very short break, and we'll be back with the top 8 very quickly. Don't go anywhere.